DJI 04. There are a bunch of amazing review videos out there. In fact, we did one on the Rotor-Riot YouTube channel. This is my personal channel. So if you guys want like a really in-depth video about the DJI 04 Pro, don't come here. Don't. Go to Rotor-Riot's video. But there's one thing about the DJI 04 that I was really interested in, and that's the fact that the DJI 04 Pro has a 1 1/3 inch sensor on it. What does that mean? This is the biggest sensor that we have seen on an FPV drone camera, which is amazing. What this means is that we should be able to do really amazing shots at low light. So guess what we are going to be testing in depth today? You guessed it. Low light. That's the cops. Low light. So yeah, it has the 1 1/3 inch sensor, which is great for low light, and it also has a lens aperture of f2.8, which is great because aperture basically is how much light you're letting in, and a lower number means more light let in. So f2.8 is a great aperture. I think if you get really low, would be like f2 if you're getting down there. So f2.8 is really good. So quickly, I want to run over the settings that I'm going to be testing using the 04 Pro, for low light. So we're going to be shooting at 4K 60, and I want to do that because that's a good balance between I can see a lot of frames when flying, and also it'll allow me to get the shutter speed a little bit lower so that we can open it up more for low light. If you're going to be filming in low light, you don't want to film at a high frame rate because that means your shutter speed has to be really high, and long story short, shutter speed high means less light into the camera, and since it's dark, we want to let more light into the camera. So I'm going to try 4K 60, I'm going to try 4K 30, and then I'm going to try ultra wide with stabilization on, the Rocksteady. Then we're also going to do the wide field of view with GyroFlow. I think the ultra wide with Rocksteady is going to be the easier route in terms of editing. You kind of just fly, take off the SD card footage, and post it. And I also want to try GyroFlow because I do a lot of cinematic flying work, and I want to see if it's gotten better than the previous generation and if I could actually use it. So we want to use GyroFlow just because it gives us a little bit more room to work with the stabilization. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna point to the cameraman Dale today.
Hi.
So you gotta talk to the mic.
I'm the cameraman.
He's a cameraman. He also has a really cool Porsche 944. So we're gonna see if we can get some really cool shots here. We're just here in some undisclosed location. So we're gonna go ahead and try that out. And we're just gonna get a couple cool shots. And I'm gonna go ahead and just start flying right now. And what I'll do is just put a little montage together of the flying, and then we'll head back to my house and we'll kind of brief about the footage and we'll actually look at it and work with it. And hopefully by the end of the video, what we can do is put together a really cool 30-45 second video of this car in Winter Haven. There will be no storyline, just cool shots. That's what I like to do, cool shots. And hopefully the 04 Pro does really good in low light. Made it back to the house. We only had one encounter with the law. Quickly wanted to run over the drone I was using. I'm using the Tank S. This is designed by Let's Fly RC. And it's really great about this drone is that it actually fits the 04 camera really well. A lot of the drone frames out there are not going to be able to fit the 04 just because the camera is very large. The VTX is a good size though, but the camera is very large. But the Tank S 3.5 inch definitely does fit it. I'll have a link in the description if you want to pick up the frame and try it with your 04 Pro. But yeah, that's what I'm doing there. Wanted to run over some other settings I was using. I was using my ISO at maximum 1600, and both times in 4K 60 and 4K 30, my shutter was at 1/60th. just to, even when I'm in the 60 FPS, just to let it in as much light as I could. I was also filming in the D-Log M mode, which is very nice that the DJI O4 Pro has that now. And what else did I have on there? That's all the settings that I had. So shutter speed 160, ISO maximum 1600, D-Log M. I did have my white balance on auto. It's a crime, but I did have that on auto, and I think that's it. The footage you guys saw before I just was yapping, I had in the bottom left what type of footage that was, and honestly, my favorite look out of all of them was the 4K 60 ultra wide with the Rocksteady stabilization on. I liked that look the best because it almost kind of looked a little bit like real steady. So the gyroflow footage was really cool, but I think since you have to film in wide and not the widest version, once you gyroflow it, gyroflow stabilization does crop in a little bit. I think it got a little bit too tight. So honestly, I really did like the 4K 60 ultra wide with the Rocksteady stabilization on it. And just to quickly talk about the low light when I was flying in the goggles, the image was really bright and really crisp, which is really what matters most. So when I'm flying, even in that pretty dark environment, everything was very lit up, especially when I went up high. That was the biggest thing I noticed, was that all of the kind of ground I could see very well. With the previous generation, it would all be very dark and be kind of hard to see, but with this one, it was very bright in the goggles, which was really good. And then just going back on and looking at some of the footage, it looks good from up top. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of grain because we're at 1600 ISO, but overall, the image is really clean, especially for being, the light conditions that we are in. I guess when I'm down low, there's a lot of light from the street lights, but like when I go up and look at this shot of the cross, we can kind of look down at the ground, and the image is very clean from everywhere. So really good with the low light. So when we're looking at footage to see if it's good in low light, the biggest thing that I'm looking at for these smaller action cameras is how do the shadows look. So let's just find a good clip where there's a lot of shadows. I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I think we'll go here where there's kind of bright. Also checking in the shadows to see how good the dynamic range of this camera is. Dynamic range is basically talking about you have an image with bright highlights and then some dark areas. How much information can you pull from both of those? Usually when you're exposing, you'll usually have to expose for either the highlights or the shadows, and a camera with really good dynamic range, you could just shoot it at once and you could pull up the shadows and you have information still there. You could pull down the highlights and you could still have information there. So, I mean, we'll try to see how good the dynamic range of this camera is as well. And just from looking at some of the shots when we were down low with the street lamps around there, we kind of look in the shadows. I think it has overall pretty decent dynamic range. It does get a little bit muddy in the shadows, but I mean, for these FPV shots and I mean how small the camera is, you really gotta just take it for what it is, and like you're gonna be working with it in post. Awesome. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you got to kind of see how good the DJI O4 performs in the low light capabilities. I think the DJI O4 Pro is kind of the first FPV camera that's good in low light, but also just records really high quality onboard DVR that you can use in edits and for videos. Just going through and editing this video right now, and I think I wanted to add one thing. I'm going to leave a link in the description to a Dropbox that will have some of the low light shots that I shot. So if you guys want to test around with the O4 footage, you guys can. There'll be a link in the description to that. Go ahead and click that. I'm gonna go ahead and finish this video off with a little edit from all the night footage that we got.